On March 17th, 2022, Flight QG478 crashed in the Pacific Ocean. All 212 passengers were declared dead, but I survived. And then I found out that my death was someone else's plan. I heard the roar of the turbines, felt the seat jerk sideways, and the rumble of the crash behind me. In the darkness, I tried to grab onto something, but remained in free fall. The cold moisture of the ocean water burned my face, and the pain of the impact echoed throughout my body. When I came to my senses, I was lying on the shaky sand of a deserted shore. His face was covered with pebbles, his clothes were torn, and salt was creeping into one of his wounds. All around, the wreckage of chairs, torn luggage, children's toys, carried along the shore by the wind, as if greetings from other people's lives. No rescuers, no ships, not a single ship on the horizon. Slowly, I rose to my feet, trembling with shock and pain. There was a sepulchral silence, interrupted only by the quiet rustle of the waves and the shrill cry of seagulls. The clenching cold of the ocean was replaced by an ominous emptiness, an emptiness in which my rescue seemed a tragic curiosity. I stepped toward the wreckage, and my attention was caught by a charred suitcase. The metal handle was burnt, the hastily welded seams darkened by the heat. Inside were someone else's documents. A passport in a stranger's name, an ID card, and photos of a man I'd never seen. The first and last names weren't mine, but it was these papers that became my new identity. I remembered the last images before takeoff. A stewardess in an immaculate gray suit, a smile inviting me to the bar. I ordered a whiskey, and that's when she whispered, "Have a nice flight." I realized later that her smile was the beginning of the whole game, the puppeteers cloaked in innocent attention. I shouted, "I'm here! I'm alive! I survived!" But my voice was drowned out by the sound of the surf and wind. Nature itself seemed to turn away from me, unwilling to acknowledge my existence. The cries I tried to attract attention echoed in the void as if they were the fantasy of a sick mind. After 3 days, I reached the nearest settlement. Wading through groves and quarries, I came to an old, broken road where I caught a hitchhiker to the nearest town. The road seemed like an endless basket of jagged rocks and frozen cars. My hands shook with weakness. My body demanded help. But inside, everything screamed for only one thing: to prove my life. I walked into the police station and uttered, "I am a survivor of QG478. I am a living witness to the crash." The policeman looked at me coldly and emotionlessly, as if I had come from the world of the dead. After checking my fingerprints and ID scans, they made a silent radio call. A minute later, 2 men in black suits entered the room. "You are charged with slandering the memory of the dead," one of them pronounced, sliding the handcuffs over my wrists. The death report was signed and approved. I was officially dead. The insurance payout went to my family, my wife, whom we had divorced 5 years earlier. On paper, she received $2 million for my death at sea. And I turned out to be nothing more than a mistake in the bureaucratic machine. The staff had documents in their hands, a death certificate, a report of medical examination of the corpse, copies of DNA tests, in which there was someone else's signature of the expert. All the papers were like a verdict. I was doomed to oblivion. When I had no more strength left to argue, I walked outside, feeling the world around me shrink to one thought: to find the truth. My path led me to a hacker hiding under the alias Anonymous. His voice came through a cheap voice synthesizer, mechanical, emotionless, but with the hardness of a man who had seen too much. He told me about an operation that had been in preparation for more than a decade. Flight QG478 was a sham, an insurance lever in the hands of major corporations. Fake victims with cloned DNA samples were created at disaster sites, then transferred to new casualty lists to cancel debts and make millions in payouts. In the dead database, I found records of 10 people listed as dead from other disasters. Anonymous sent me an archive, photos of burned bodies with blurred faces, forged medical reports with my pseudonym instead of my surname. One of the documents had a stamp from a psychiatric clinic that listed me as prone to delirium, another argument for an official reading of the testimony. I looked at emails from top managers discussing the details of the liquidation, time, place, selection of front men. I've seen recordings of a board meeting where shareholder payouts were discussed. 1 week after the crash, and all the paperwork is gone. This is not an accident. It's an operation. As I began to share this knowledge, the first calls came in. The number is hidden. The tone is cold. Stop digging. You're dead. Forget everything. Each day, the pressure grew. The black SUV in the parking lot outside the house, the unknown figures in the street corners, the strange whispers in the wind noise. One night, I dashed out of town, darting along forest trails where soft moss and thickets hid me temporarily from my pursuers. Arrows of danger pierced the air, gunshots in the distance, the screams of wild animals, the crunch of a broken branch under my foot. Adrenaline made it impossible to stop. In the mountains, I met her, my ex-wife. Her eyes did not hide the confusion and fear. With a tremor in her voice, she confessed, "I was paid for your death. You were supposed to be gone forever. The betrayal was a dagger in my heart. The man I loved was a tool in someone else's game." The engine whistled behind her as a black SUV caught up with us and sped past. Before it disappeared into the darkness, a single bullet pierced the silence. She collapsed into the gloomy twilight of the forest, and I saw her white shirt stained with blood. Tears mixed with the rain. I lifted her body and realized the main victim of this story had died by my own order. Now I was alone, but with new evidence, copies of emails, videos of meetings, minutes of meetings where they discussed updating the lists. I turned it all over to independent journalists. The materials allegedly disappeared from public sources, and the central media ignored the requests. The official version of the disaster still sounds like technical malfunction, and I became just a ghost to them. Now I'm hiding in the mountains, changing names and documents, living under a false identity. But my voice still echoes through this recording. If you recognize your name in the list of the dead, or if you receive strange calls from invisible strangers, run. Because one day they will pronounce you dead, and then no one will believe you.